People today are learning how to have their own afterlife communications while sitting quietly in their homes or in any other place, such as a waiting room. They just close their eyes and the communications begin. These abilities have resulted from going through the free online training we have created. A link is below in the description. In this video, you will hear the accounts by people who have had afterlife communications using the procedure. These examples include validations that the people have had afterlife communications because they learned things they didn't know that were later validated to be true. Hello, I'm Dr. R. Craig Hogan, President of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute and Seek Reality Online. In the first self-guided afterlife communication account, a woman sees a young girl living in the afterlife. She describes what the girl was doing. One part of what she learns during the connection makes no sense to her. When she later contacts the girl's mother, she learns what that part of the connection means, proving to her that the conversation was with the girl living in the afterlife. The woman has given us permission to share her account.
Then I saw a young teenage girl. She had familiar features. The name Brenda came to me, and I realized it's a friend of mine's daughter. She died in a rollover crash where she was pinned and asphyxiated. The kids with her were allegedly responsible for her being abandoned at the wreck. The feelings I got from her had nothing to do with that wreck or the people around her then. She hovered with me, morphing a bit, so I saw her in different ages. I saw her exploring. I heard her say, "I love Mom. I miss Mom." I saw some food item rolled. It looked like a lobster roll but with jalapenos. I was focused on it too much and it disappeared. I looked to the side and saw her as a little girl, rolling out dough, working on a red check tablecloth, working so hard. She was darling. Then I realized, oh, she misses doing this stuff with her mom. At least that's what I got from it.
The participant wrote the following in an email a day later.
Well, how d'ye do? I wrote Lauren, mother of the little girl in the afterlife connection, and told her the first part of it and how confused I was with the roll-ups that had jalapenos in them. I kept thinking, what on earth? So I wrote Lauren, unsure of how much to tell her. I can never remember who is a believer and who isn't. Guess what? She writes back and says it makes sense to her. Yes, they made jalapeno roll-ups. What? I've never heard of such a thing. Look, if I ever thought I was making this stuff up, well, I completely believe now. Where the hell did jalapeno roll-ups come from?
In this second self-guided afterlife connection, a woman had a self-guided afterlife connection with her aunt. Her aunt showed her images, including the image of being at her grandmother's house, where a large portrait of her aunt was being taken down and moved. She writes that when she described what she saw to her mother, the vision of the portrait being taken down made sense.
Next, I saw an aunt on my dad's side that I've always felt very close to, even though we didn't really have a chance to know one another in life. I was named after her. However, she died when she was 18 years old, and I was only 3 at the time. She was not talking to me, but showing me scenes from her lifetime. I saw her at her wedding, and then I saw her sitting at a table, somewhat bored looking. And then I watched her make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And before she ate it, she smashed it all down really flat. I have no idea if she liked her sandwiches that way, but hope to find out. In any case, the next thing I know, I'm at my grandmother's house, her mother, and I'm seeing this giant portrait of my aunt. That's really there, and I see it being taken down and being moved around. But then I became aware that this was difficult for someone, that they wanted to move the portrait, but couldn't bring themselves to do it. I wasn't sure what that meant. I was talking with my mother the next day, and I told her about what I had seen. As it turns out, my sister's daughter was visiting. She and my sister live in my grandmother's old house, and my niece and my sister had talked about moving my aunt's portrait because they had something else they wanted to hang, but my sister just couldn't bring herself to do it. The house has pretty much remained the same since my grandmother passed back in 2005. I haven't been to the house since my grandmother passed. Anyway, my niece said that when her mother wasn't home, she took down the portrait of my aunt. And so the portrait has been removed, and this picture from Italy is now in its place. My niece felt horrible when my mother told her what I had seen. But my mother reassured her that it was not that my aunt was unhappy about the move of her picture, but that this was something that would be validated for me. I was very excited. I mean, how cool.
In this guided afterlife connection account, a woman described her afterlife connection experiences to her grandmother. Her grandmother asked her to try to make a connection with the woman's mother, the grandmother's daughter, the next time that she went into a self-guided afterlife connection. This is her account of the remarkable validation of the reality of her experience.
I had another connection with my grandfather. It was pretty much the same steps as the last experience. Towards the beginning, I sort of felt like I was on the edge of fully being there with him and not being there at all. He grabbed me, and I had a sensation of movement, sort of further into his realm. And he said to me that the difference between where I just was and where I am now was just an illusion. He moved me deeper in, but said that it was just a representation for the mind, nothing more. Grandma had asked me to try and meet her mother next time I did this. So once I was connected with my grandpa again, I said that Grandma wanted me to do this. Nothing happened except that I saw in my mind's eye an old photograph of a woman. Then I heard Mabel, Mabel, Mabel. This went on about 5 times. I was thinking that maybe that was my grandma's mother's name. So I asked my grandpa, "Who's Mabel?" He suddenly had his arm around a teenage girl, and he said that this was my grandma's sister who died when they were girls. Mabel was nice, and the three of us talked for quite a while. I imagined a tree, and it appeared. We all sat and laid under it for a while. They answered many of my questions, mostly pertaining to spiritual topics. Once the session ended, I went and talked to my grandma. I said I was with Grandpa and was going to try and meet her mother, but then heard the name Mabel several times. As soon as I said that name, my grandma said, "Oh, my sister. She died when she was 16. It was a great experience."
These afterlife connection experiences are common today. Thousands of people have gone through the self-guided afterlife connections training, with a great many having uplifting experiences of communicating with people now living in the life after this life. We invite you to go through the free online training at the link in the description.